Welcome to the mindful musings of two spiritual mamas. We are Alicia
and Shelby,
here to share our 20 years of authentic friendship, life experiences, and acquired wisdom. Infused with love and intention, our episodes will inspire those who are ready to shift their soul path into alignment with its divine purpose.
We will discuss alternative approaches to life's traditional pathways, leaving you with tools in your spiritual toolbox to navigate everyday moments. Knowing and embodying the empowered self on a daily basis is one of the most valuable practices you can adopt. Understanding that you are surrounded by a network of support, both physically and spiritually, will carry you into the next phase of your divine purpose.
You are not alone on this journey. We recognize we're on a spiritual path, navigating our day-to-day lives, and in this podcast, we'll share with you our organic thoughts as we grow and blossom together. Welcome to Two Spiritual Mamas, episode 17. This is Alicia.
And I'm Shelby.
And this is part 2 of our forgiveness episode that we did last week. And in this part 2 of it, we're going to talk about forgiving yourself. So even that has 2 parts, and we'll dive into forgiving yourself for what you've done to other people and forgiving yourself for what you've inflicted upon yourself. And so we'll go into,
self-sabotage.
Some of those archetypal things, patterns that we do. And if you want to listen to the episode prior to this that is about forgiving others, we talk about releasing victim thinking and offered the Pono Prayer, which we'll talk about again because it's just so healing. But throughout the episode, and definitely listen through to the end, because we will be going through what we consider a forgiveness practice and ways that you can sit in that self-love, unconditional love, forgiveness, and like as a step-by-step.
I like my stomach's almost in knots thinking about this topic because I definitely struggle with this, Alicia. I'm so self-critical, and I hang on to the things I've done, years and years and years later. And meanwhile, people are moved on and they don't even think about that. But here I am like, oh my God, remember that time I dropped the ball and I didn't show up. But yet I'm I try to be spiritually minded and, chakra centered. And that is still this little human trait that I'm working on. So I'm glad we're doing the episode.
I love that you said it like that, because it's the best reframe you can do is say, I used to have this pattern. I'm working on it because I'm, attempting to do things differently. So with forgiveness, we really want to center in on that heart chakra and where we can pour love in to ourselves and let yourself off the hook. Give yourself the deep breath of forgiveness and let yourself know that you're worth this forgiveness. You deserve the healing. You deserve the peace and the love. And nothing that you do will ever be set in stone, right? There's no harm done that can't be healed. There is always learning and there is always growing. But when we trust the divine plan, that things that we do and things that others do are all part of this grand scheme of things, we can really drop into the practice of feeling grateful and being who we really want to be.
So I've got this giant ball in my throat right now. So let's go into the negative self-talk. Self-judgment. We've all done it.
Yep.
We're almost masters at it at times. And so let's unmastery at that. That's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
Let's become masterful at the opposite of let in and let it go, and And
Yeah, I did
why are
my
we
best.
why are we
Right.
so hard on ourselves? Exactly, because we don't trust that we tried our best.
Yeah.
Because you can only be hard on yourself if you think you could have done it better. And with all the balls that we're juggling, with all the challenges of the world, we are all showing up and doing our best. And that's if you have that commitment to yourself, then how can you chastise yourself for not doing any better? You did your
Well, I'm
best.
going to tell you. I'm going to tell you why. Because you're fearful. Like,
Okay.
and that is typically why we choose to not go forward with a decision or a commitment that was totally in alignment for us, that was totally set up. The universe is like, ta-da, here it is. And then you're like, I'm afraid. And you turn or you run or you hide. And then you don't do it. And then you sit there and judge yourself. So it's actually, to me, it's a real, like, you allowed fear to overwhelm your trust in yourself and your trust in the divine plan. And
Yeah.
that, however, is forgivable because fear is real and
Yeah.
you just weren't practiced enough in your whatever you want to call it, your spirituality or your intuitive center to say, I am afraid, but I'm going to go forward. Because I do believe that the divine will just present it to you again and again
Right.
and again
We get,
until
and
you're ready.
that's the thing. You get opportunities. If you fail,
Mhm.
if you don't take that opportunity because you're too afraid, it will come around again. It might
It
look
will.
differently, but the
Yep.
lesson will be there, the value will be there. And you're right, it is rooted in fear and not trusting that
Mhm.
you have the capacity or capableness to
Mhm.
do whatever you're being challenged by, right? To
Yeah.
step into or through that challenge to it could be amazing, beautiful success on the other side, but
Yeah.
even that can be scary because then
Mhm.
there's a bigger demand on you or, you know,
Right.
expectation that to be
Right.
amazing. And sometimes you want to just relax and not be so amazing all the time.
Well, it was interesting that, I knew we were recording today and my subconscious brought this. I woke up this morning thinking about something I did when I was 19.
Mm,
19.
it's a long
And
time ago.
I had a role, a leadership role, and I was so nervous about putting on this event that I canceled the event. And at that time, it was so much easier to just cancel it and take the hit from everyone's disappointment than to move forward and possibly fail. It was such
Mm,
an unfamiliar, I've never put on an event like that. And so I just said, never mind. And there was some reason I remember, like there was snow or, it was semi,
legitimate.
legitimate, but not really. Like I should have pushed through. And this morning that came up and I was like, what am I still hanging on to that? And then I thought about it and I was like, wait, I have a 19-year-old right now and I have an 18-year-old right now. And the fact that I was even in that position when I was 19, that I was stepping up into that role, I am right now in this very moment as we're recording, I am forgiving myself for being scared because I was 19
Yeah.
and I was living in a brand new town. I had very little like support, my people. I didn't have my people. And
Mhm.
I just have to say, forgive yourself, Shelby. Look at what you've been able to do now. Look at how many things you've charged forward and done. And so, thank you for the lesson. Thank you for the feeling how disappointed I was in myself. So that when the next opportunity came, I was like, hell no, I'm not going to cancel anything. I'm going to say yes next time and believe that I have the capability to do it, even though it's completely unfamiliar to me. I'm going
Yes.
to move forward. So thank you. And here's our Pono prayer. Thank you. I love you. Forgive me. Um, I forget the other one right now. I just said them all. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So that's just one little thing that jumped into my consciousness today. And it's just like let go of that stuff. It all happened
Yes.
to propel you forward. It happened to enlighten you. It happened to put that mirror. We've talked about the mirror in front of you.
Yes.
You know,
And let me just speak to the 19-year-old within us and our own children as they are growing, there are some things that are age appropriate lessons. There are some failures, there are some challenges that are some behaviors of acting out even that are age appropriate. There's ways to learn lessons through failure that are, you know, something that you probably wouldn't do now at this age, but at that age it was the perfect time to learn that lesson. It was the perfect amount of impact. Like you said, it was worth it to cancel, to handle the disappointment of others, and that you had the capacity to do that versus the failure and trying to manage and handle that at that age. So now it's a different world for you internally, and when your 19-year-old, you know, disappoints, it's easier to forgive him too, because you've been able to see that within yourself and why it happened and what the fear was, and then help him through the fear, right?
Yeah.
Show him the way through a little easier than you had to do it trial by fire.
And, you know, I remember at that time, I thought it would be easier to handle people being disappointed with me, but then I got to feel how that felt, and I was like, "Oh, this sucks. This sucks more than my uncomfortableness with putting on this event. I'm going to go to the event because that's easier than people being like, "Oh, why did you do that?" You know, and you know, like because what I actually this is a good lesson for the spiritual mamas is people said you could have reached out, Shelby. We would have helped you. Even though I had such a small circle because it was a new town, there were enough, like one or two people. And even reaching, you know, back then, okay, we're in our 40s. So
20 years ago.
this was not like, let me jump on Facebook and reach out to somebody for help. But I still could have. And so there was so many lessons in that one moment. And
that now you're able to release it and say, thank you for that lesson. Yeah, thank you. And forgive yourself. Forgive that 19-year-old self for needing to learn the hard lesson that particular way. And so one of the tools then here that we're highlighting is rewriting the story, going back and understanding yourself from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then being grateful for the experience. Being grateful for the lessons. Honor all that was brought to you so that you can heal it. And in this present moment, using that prayer, doing the forgiveness, and dropping into the heart. I mean, I saw the tears well up in you, and it's and that is actually in itself very healing and cathartic. The cleansing of our tears can be part of the healing process.
And I think something that we've talked about, but I love saying it again. We are like prisms. We have so many facets. And when you want to make a change in your life, all of those facets have to be on board for the change to be at least a good there has to be a big enough percentage. The majority rules, right? Yeah. And isn't that true? Like the herd, when 51% of the herd turns toward a water source, they follow, right? Isn't that the best? So when 51% of your facets get on board, we'll go with this, then you're ready for sustainable change.
Yes.
But until then, the lesson's going to keep coming until it can really reflect in all the facets to say, okay, girl, okay, guy, like, okay, people, we're ready. We're ready and we're on board. So that's why I do love the now moment. I love what am I seeing right here? And I also want to say that this is where I think our reflections, gosh, I'm so punny today. The reflections, we don't do the reflections enough. And that's why I love doing these podcasts with you. That's why I love our moon circles. Like we get home from work, it's been a crazy busy day. We go on our phones, we talk to our kids for a minute, and then we just crash, watch a movie and crash. At what point?
The tuning out with technology especially.
At what point did we just lay and go, oh, what did I
review the day? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so that you can forgive even in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Because what if if you don't process it, then you hang on to it a long time. But if you in that moment say, oh, geez, I messed up a little bit today, but hey, did my best,
Yep. I
then
do a little
it's,
reflection journal, try to do it every day, and it helps me to keep up with the constant daily this and that to reflect on it. So even if it's just a 5-minute journal, like that's a
mhm,
popular thing now, people can do just the short little review, and then you can kind of process it deeper if you have a bigger practice for it or if there's something that was really big that came up. But I think that's an excellent suggestion, a wonderful tool.
yeah, definitely. And here I am. I'm like, I'm so busy. I don't want to write anything. I just want to lay. Just tell me to lay flat and think for 5 minutes. And I am always pleasantly in love with what happens. It really,
Nice.
my body is like, oh, thank you for letting me just unwind naturally,
Mhm.
without a story from the movie you're watching or too many stories. You scroll Facebook or Instagram and you're like, that was like 17
Lot to
people's lives that
process.
yeah. So,
Yeah. So
yes.
one of the other things we want to touch on is knowing yourself well enough to forgive those things,
Mm,
but from a place of knowing your personal values and goals. Because if you are clear about what your values are, and I have run a workshop on this before to help people understand what their core desired feelings are and what the values are that they really want to bring into every interaction, every day, right? Yours is probably this as well, similar. My very top value and core desired feeling is freedom. I would have thought
mhm.
it would be love or joy. And I keep coming back to freedom. And isn't forgiveness one of the biggest, bestest tools for feeling
Oh,
free and light and open and that sense of freedom? So if I, at the end of the day, do resent anyone or myself, and right now, this episode, we're mostly talking about ourselves, I will tap into that desire for freedom and feel it so strongly within my body that it just like pulls that forgiveness out of me. It just makes me want to forgive myself so
mhm,
deeply because then I can feel that freedom and joy and love. Like those are my top 3. I just don't even need to put a priority on any of them because
mhm.
all 3 of those seem to tie so well together for me in my life.
So I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
If you do this work and you are really in alignment and you have forgiven yourself and you've understood that your life is not in a Sharpie, it's in a pencil, and you can erase and you can shift and you can grow, and you've checked in with yourself, but then you still have the people in your life that you can't have this conversation with. A lot of times it could be like the important people, whether it's your family or your bosses or your friends, and it's just not like, you kind of wonder, do they forgive me? I've forgiven me, but do they forgive me? Like, how do you navigate and let go that that's actually not your thing to solve? Like,
It brings me back to the 4 agreements from Don
mm,
Miguel Ruiz, and when he says nothing anybody ever does is because of you,
mhm,
that you're completely free of what people project onto you. And those are the people in your life, some of them, family that you need to be in touch with. They may not be close relationships, but they are part of your core. Then you get to choose boundary levels of how much engagement, because if they're going to continually remind you of something you did because they're never going to forgive you for it, that's not a healthy relationship to be interacting in. And they say that the 5 closest people to you are the reflection of who you really are, because you mirror neurons, and the way that our neural pathways work, we are relating to those people most frequently. And so we are acting like them, they're acting like us. And if you have people in your life that are constantly complaining about you or about something you've done, then they're not being supportive and loving to you. That's not a great reflection, unless that's your challenge and you're choosing to have that person in your life to mirror that back to you. And then you're doing the work. And sometimes healing it in yourself heals the people around you, and sometimes it doesn't. And that's when you need to step back and give some more space.
So what if you don't want to step back? Like, how do you say to them, I guess you just say, I've forgiven myself for that. I have, and you have just a real gentle conversation and say, I have decided to move out of that space, and I am not proud of that, but I have forgiven myself because I was doing my best with who I was at that time. And I am thankfully growing. I'm totally crying. Sorry, everyone. We're having an action live moment.
Present healing moment.
Present in the now moment. And like maybe some people are saying, oh, I could never say those things to that person. And then say it to them into the universe, say it to the ethers, send them a little
meditation prayer.
Yep. Yeah. And say it every night and say it every morning. And they'll hear you at some level, just
yes,
like
their higher
at some level
will hear it. Maybe they'll get another person in their life that shows them that lesson. It may not be you that has to teach it to them, how forgiveness works, but you could always send them a resource to read or listen to that might nudge them in the right direction. Or, and if it's really just not someone that is on that level, then that's forgiving them for holding on to it too.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta just say this, when you were talking about the 5 people, I almost started crying. Well, no, I did. Because when I see you, Alicia, when I get to hug you and my heart gets to be next to your heart, I'm not going to let go for like 5 minutes, because it has been years since I have physically hugged you.
Yes.
And it's going to be exciting. So,
yay. Nope, everybody feels the love. I'm sure it's a good healing essence for people to see the love we have for each other, and how having a sisterhood like we do, and having spiritual reflection, and someone that, we both love having our masculine partners in our lives. And there's just something really special about having that feminine connection as well. And it's just, it can come in so many different ways, that love is just so beautiful that it can be exactly that you just shared. I love it. I love it.
And when I was 19, if I had you, I'd have been like, girl, and you'd have been like, do it, girl. I got your back. Do the event. And if I had, and if I had what you said about what are my core values, like to be strong, to be courageous, to be inventive and innovative and outside of the box, had I known those little lessons for myself, I could have moved forward. But hey, here I am now. And so I forgive you, my 19-year-old self. And and I'm sure no one who was involved in that event is thinking about it at all.
Yeah, you didn't ruin anybody's life because you didn't host that event. And that's what we all need to recognize, that when we let go, when we feel that forgiveness, that it's really, you see that it's not a big deal. Well, they say, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff.
Yeah.
So let's just.
Well, have you ever rekindled with somebody that you maybe had a little edgy moment with, and they literally are like, what? I don't remember that. And you're like, are you serious? Like, sorry, I was really loud. For like
more often than not. Yeah.
For like 10 years, I've been worried about that. And they're like, I don't, that wasn't a big deal. Yes. And so that happens to me so often, because I love to circle back. And if I can, and now with like Instagram and Facebook, it's like, oh, hey, look at you. How have you been? And it's always joy. There's always joy. And just like, oh, that's right. We had such good times together. It's not, oh yeah, that one time that you didn't show up. Like nobody's doing that,
Totally.
So yes, resentment for yourself, like just think of the freedom. And if you're so stuck inside of self-sabotage or the sticky stuff, then paint the picture of what it's going to feel like. That's what I always try to say when you're in a relationship or in a job that you feel very stuck in. Paint the picture of how your ideal life, And so,
Yeah, that's part of
what,
my meditation practice is like
yeah,
future paving.
yeah,
What do you want that road to look like? What do you want to show up? How do you want to be with
yeah.
that person, with the situation?
Well,
Yeah,
with
you can.
myself, I want to wake up in the morning and feel like today is another opportunity. I don't want to wake up in the morning with the heaviness of yesterday or the heaviness of the last 20 years. I want to wake up in the now moment and say,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, what are we going to get done today? Or what aren't we going to get done today?" Because
How are
she
we
who
going to
rests
relax?
creates. Yes, yes,
Self-care.
yes. Self care. So yeah, that's nice.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Shelby, for all your love and all your insight. And I love hearing just how in a real life moment, like you had your own healing moment here today, and also
Thank
you're
you.
able to really help our listeners identify the negative self-talk and how that works
Mhm.
against us and how we need to forgive ourselves for that. And you did bring up the asking for help. And so
Yes.
that's the thing I'd like to leave everyone with is if you don't have those people in your life you can reach out to for support, just know that your spirit guides, your higher self, your divine connection is always there for you.
Hmm.
And taking that reflective moment to go within the heart chakra, feel into your own inner trust. And then if you don't find it, ask for it. Ask for divine to show it to you. Ask for the healing from spirit because
Hmm.
energy is in everything. It's all around us. So you might hear that intuitive nudge to go outside, and maybe the birds will sing you a song, and that will feel like love and forgiveness. And that will be the healing that you need for that moment. You just need to follow your heart, follow that unconditional love that you can send to yourself. And if you can't feel it, know that the divine spirit, God, universe, God, goddess, whoever you
Hmm.
like to call it, is loving you. And we are loving you.
Hmm. I've got one real quick. It's like imagine you got your backpack with the rocks in it and you don't
Mhm.
know how to take the rocks out. Imagine that the divine is some water and you can pour that water into the vessel. It's a waterproof backpack, okay? And the divine and the water can get into the cracks and it can help you to
Loosen
loosen those
things up.
rocks and to say
Mhm.
the rocks aren't so necessary. Let's let go because it is so hard to let go sometimes. You become so attached to that identity that I am the victim of this and I was this and this shaped my life. And yes, all those things shaped your life and they turned you in directions that you wouldn't have done on your own. But here you are in this now moment with the rocks. And the divine is knocking and saying, can I come in and help you? And
Yeah.
so allow that heart chakra to rotate and open to that throat and 6 and 7 chakras and say, yes, bring it on, bring it on, bring in the water, bring in the light, whatever it is. But it's all there for you.
It is. And constantly doing the forgiveness prayer, the Ho'oponopono. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And
Mhm.
what the Hawaiian dictionary even says about it is that that will rearrange, that
Yes.
will
Return
revise.
to order.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That prayer will help you manage and edit and and reshape,
Yeah.
like you said, those twists and turns and those challenges. It will put to order, put to right, and put you back in your center and your balance and your heart.
Well, I love you. I thank you. Please forgive me for whatever whatever I do, well, all the swears I say accidentally.
It can be anything and everything. I
Yes,
love
yes.
you.
I love you too. Love everybody out there. Thank you so much. And peace on your journey forward.